We are less than 48 hours away from the legal tampering period. As we know, the Jets most likely won't be making the blockbuster moves like we've seen over the past few seasons, but don't count the Jets out on the open market with over $50 million in cap space. Plus, could the Jets retain Morgan Moses and Jamien Sherwood before they hit the open market? A lot to get into. We'll cover that and much more all coming up here on a Saturday evening edition of NY Flight Jets Talk with our guy Tigo from Talkin' Jets with Tigo.
Jets, Jets, let's go.
Jets wide receiver Wesley Walker. Wesley, how you doing today?
ESPN writer, Mr. Rich Samini, Jets reporter for The Athletic, Mr. Zach Rosenblatt, Hall of Famer, and Jets legend, Mr. Marty Lyons.
Your host, Connor Law.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back here into NY Flight Jets Talk on this Saturday evening, March 8th, 2025. Appreciate you all tuning in. Make sure you smash the like button and you are subscribed to the channel on your way into the building. It's completely free, and it helps us grow significantly here on the program. A lot of delays today, and it's my fault. I was in the city earlier today, so we had to push the show back. 10 p.m. start time, one of our latest start times, I would say, in NY Flight Jets Talk history. So I appreciate those who are transparent. Appreciate all you guys tuning in. Like I said, like, share, and subscribe is the free way to help grow the show, and it goes a really long way. So much appreciated if you guys could do that. The paid way to help support the show, we'll throw the ticker on. It is on that, in fact, down below. Contributing to our membership raffle. Our March membership raffle contains 7 prizes, including a Wayne Corbett signed jersey, a Darrell Rivas signed photo, an Altoon signed photo, a Keyshawn Johnson signed photo, a Jericho Cotchery signed photo, a free item from our merch store channel emoji. You can get in our raffle by gifting one membership, gifting any membership. You get 50 memberships, 50 raffle tickets, $50 in super chats that get you X amount of raffle tickets. That's how you are able to get into our membership raffle. It's a great way to support the show, helping the show grow by donating is always much appreciated. But let's bring on our guest for today's show, joining us here every week. We're alternating channels. It's our guy Talkin' Jets with Tigo. Tigo, how you doing today on this beautiful Saturday evening, late night Talkin' Jets here with you?
Yes, it is late night. I am a little under the weather, so I might not be at the full Tigo powers as usual, but I am always happy to talk Jets with you, Connor. So it's a blast to be here.
Tigo, I'm super happy you are able to come on. I hope the sickness, the illness goes away shortly. I know it's being sick is never fun, especially this time of year when we're nearing some big the big NFL offseason landmarks and in the legal tampering period opening shortly, and then obviously the draft coming up in a little over a month. I'm gonna pull up this tweet. Tigo from NFL Insider Rich Samini today, who pretty much he went on his Twitter account and he listed some free agent names to watch for the New York Jets. He lists Justin Fields, Tim Patrick, Juwan Johnson, DJ Jones, Levi Onwuzurike, Marcus Davenport, who was signed earlier today by the Lions. Let's see, who's Carlton Davis is the other one. Talona Hufanga, safety of the 49ers, Jeremy Chin, safety of the Washington Commanders, and then Ifotu Melifonwu. I hope I'm saying that correctly. He was a safety who played for the Lions this past season. Tigo, I know a lot of Jet fans are really, really high on Justin Fields. I know you're in the complete opposite boat. We also heard from Jordan Schultz today that yesterday, that the Jets are really, really high on bringing in Justin Fields. I'm going to start with Fields. I want your thoughts here, and what does this mean for the team?
Oh, just losing in 2025? Like, that's what that is, right? Like, you're just committing to losing in 2025. And again, like, it makes sense if that's what you're trying to do. If you don't think that the reality is that if you don't think that the roster is ready to win now, which is like from conversations that we've seen from a lot of Jets fans and like even yourself, and you've said like, oh, it's not like we're going to win a Super Bowl next year anyway. So like, you might as well go get the guy that is going to trick a bunch of the fans into thinking there's hope. And that's what Justin Fields is, right? It's you getting a guy saying there might be upside and there really isn't one. And then when you lose a ton of games, you're like, well, we tried. We're going to get our quarterback in 2026. So that's the reality of it. So Justin Fields is a perfect way to trick a fan base into thinking that you're trying while actively trying to lose. So
Yeah. Now, if you guys have been watching the show, you know my stance on Justin Fields. I'm in the opposite boat of Tigo. I think, like, you look at the options, they aren't all that great. You have to bring someone in to compete with Tyrod Taylor. You might as well bring in soon-to-be 26-year-old Justin Fields, who's shown flashes of upside. He has mobility. Might as well just take a flyer on him, because you look at the other options, they aren't all that attractive, and there's still that bit of unknown. The flashes that Justin Fields has shown, maybe that could be something more than just a traditional bridge option. So I'm not gonna go on a whole tirade here on why I think Justin Fields is one of the best options for the Jets. Moving on, though, Tim Patrick, wide receiver, was in Denver when Darren Muji was there, and was with the Lions this past season. Aaron Glenn was there, so has a connection to both Glenn and Muji. Tigo. Now, it's hard to look at him and judge him based off his numbers last season, just because you look at all the pass catchers the Lions have, whether it's Sam Laporta, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jamison Williams, David Montgomery, Jahmyr Gibbs, catching passes out of the backfield. It's really hard for a guy like Patrick to kind of crack his way in a starting position and really get a lot of snaps. He's someone, though, who suffered two gruesome injuries that pretty much made him miss two back-to-back seasons. His career years, he just eclipsed over 700 yards, and that was in 2021 and 2020, and 2021. So still a few years ago, coming off two massive leg injuries. The way I view a guy like Tim Patrick, he is a super, super, super low-end wide receiver too. I don't feel comfortable going into the season with him as my wide receiver too, but he's a middle of the road in my eyes, wide receiver 3. So you get him in the building for a couple $1 million, I think he could be a wide receiver 3 option for this team.
I think that's way too high, and the fact he said $2 million is concerning. You give him the league. He's coming to the New York Jets. I think that's very, like, that's the easiest signing, and he comes in on a league min deal. He was on a league min deal last year and didn't really put up all these great numbers. Why would he get more money going into his 33rd year? You bring him in on another league min deal, and he's not wide receiver 3. I don't think that's the right way to look at him. He's wide receiver 4. The reason you're going after a guy like Tim Patrick is because he knows and is familiar with the offense that Tanner Engstrand is going to try to implement. He is a low cost, and you know what you're going to get from him. He's going to cost you nothing. Like, it's barely any cap space, like, at all. We'd be in a situation where he might not even make the top 51 contracts on the New York Jets. So you bring him in because, well, we kept our wide receivers coach, and having a guy who's familiar with the system to help be in those rooms and be in those meetings is a positive. There is little to no downside in bringing a guy like Tim Patrick to the New York Jets. That's just kind of the situation, right? He's a free agent. If he was going to stay with Denver, if he was going to stay with Detroit, like, they would have already done that, because you can we were already starting to see these league min deals going around. And so, like, why not follow your passing game coordinator to his new team? And that's that.
Here's my thing, Tigo, when it comes to the wide receiver room. You mentioned him, wide receiver 3 you think is too high. The way I look at the free agent class for wide receivers this offseason, you have the guys who are the veterans, who are the bigger names, who are going to be expensive in Stephon Diggs and Keenan Allen. And then you look at, there's still some other veterans, DeAndre Hopkins, Robert Woods, Brandon Cooks. I haven't said Robert Woods' name in a long time. That sounds weird. And then you have, for example, the maybe lower end guys, like a Tim Patrick, like a Mac Hollins, someone of that nature who's going to cost you a lot less money than a Stephon Diggs or a Keenan Allen. The way I look at free agency for the wide receiver room, I think you sign one free agent wide receiver, and then I think you draft 2. How do you want the Jets to revamp the wide receiver room this offseason?
I think you got to swing big, honestly. I think, like, outside of Tim Patrick, which is, I think, a thing that we absolutely should, like, just do, just for, again, continuity and offensive scheme, and having a guy in the room that can just kind of be another coach, especially at 33, which is what Tim Patrick will be, I think, at the beginning of the season. I think you can take a big swing this year. But only, like, I would avoid guys like Stephon Diggs, because I think Stephon Diggs is probably going to get like a 1-year deal. But, like, this is a relatively good free agent class at the top for wide receiver. And if you can get one of the bigger names, and that's a big if, but if you can go out there and convince a Chris Godwin to come on a 3-year deal, or an Amari Cooper to come on a 3-year deal, or, you know, maybe not at that same tier, but like the tier before that, like Darius Slayton to come on a 3-year deal or something like that.
I love Darius Slayton.
I think that's a positive for the team, because like ultimately the Jets are going to end up with a rookie quarterback either this year or next year, right? And if we do go down the terrifying route, which is going after Justin Fields, we're definitely going to get a rookie in 2026, right? It's good to just have weapons. It's never a bad thing to have an excess of wide receivers. And technically speaking, whenever Garrett Wilson gets his extension, it's not going to kick in until 2027, really, right? Like the big money, which is right at the time where you can get out from under this guy. And so you can kind of try to do, this is, again, looking ahead, you can kind of try to do what Chicago did with Caleb Williams, which is just like, there's no excuses. You're going to have 3 wide receivers that are all going to be really, really good. Keenan Allen just left this year. So they're going down from 3 really good wide receivers, or like 2 really good wide receivers and a guy that we think is going to be good in Rome Odunze, to 1 really good wide receiver. And now Rome Odunze in his 2nd year. We can do something very similar, which is a guy who's a stud in Garrett Wilson and like a guy who's a stud in Chris Godwin, let's say. And now you just got 2 really damn good wide receivers. And in your rookie year for a quarterback, like again, this is in 2026, you're throwing at some of the best pass catchers in the NFL behind ultimately what should be a really, really good offensive line. Just make sure that the quarterback has no excuses, regardless of who it is under center. Like, I think that's how you can go about it. And I think that there is good enough players for you to do that, whether you want to swing big in like that Amari Cooper, Chris Godwin camp, or in that tier right below it in like Keenan Allen or Darius Slayton, who's going to be closer to like that, what Alan Lazard got for money. So I would do that. And like, we still have Corley and we have no idea what he is. So I'm not necessarily, I want to stagger out some of these wide receiver contracts a little bit more. So while I would love a guy like Ted McMillan in this draft, I don't see him making it to 7, but like, there is something to be said about spreading out some of these rookie contracts and seeing what we have and all of that stuff. And just kind of taking, like, we know Chris Godwin is an NFL wide receiver. You know what I mean? Instead of going into the season going, we know Garrett Wilson is an NFL wide receiver. We have no idea if the 2nd round guy is an NFL wide receiver. We have no idea if Malachi Corley is an NFL wide receiver, and then Tim Patrick. So like, I'd rather just have guaranteed upside.
Yeah, Godwin's an interesting one. Another name that's intriguing who might not fit in your boat of being a sure thing, but could be someone you take a flyer on, is Diami Brown, who was drafted by the Commanders a few years ago. He intrigues me because since he's been in the league in the regular season, he hasn't done anything. But then you look at what he did in the playoffs, pretty much almost matched his regular season production through 17 games. So there's like, he played his best football just a few months ago. Super young guy. Maybe you get him in here. The thing is, what does his price look like? What does his price look like if you're trying to add Diami Brown? Like, at the right price, I'd do it. Thing is, I'm not overpaying for someone who's young, has showed you glimmers of hope, but just isn't that guy. At that point, I'd rather go with the Chris Godwin. Like, the knee injuries do concern me with Chris Godwin, but you also get the sure thing. Like you said, he is an NFL wide receiver compared to trying to take a flyer on a guy like Diami Brown, who you'd maybe like only pay a couple $1 million less. So that's where I am. Wide receiver. I still think you need to get,
and I think you can do both too. Like, I think like if you go out and let's just say Amari Cooper, right? And you give Amari Cooper a 2-3 year deal. We know that he's going to play most of the year. He doesn't necessarily tend to ever really suffer from injuries. He is on the wrong side of 30. So maybe that changes, but also like, he was just with the Bills. And so making them weaker by bringing one of their players here is always a positive. But like, let's say you give Amari Cooper 2 years, $30 million, which is what PFF has his projected contract at. Nothing's stopping you from going and getting like, okay, instead of getting Tim Patrick, who would essentially just be like another coach, or still get Tim Patrick, right? Because you're going to have 5 wide receivers.
I think Tim Patrick's going to be the first signing, either Patrick or Fields in my eyes.
I think Levi Onwuzurike is going to be the first signing, but that is a conversation for a different time. Like De'Ami Brown's projected contract is 2 years, $6 million. That's not a lot of money. Like that's like at all. So like nothing is stopping you from doing both. I think the strength of this free agent class is at wide receiver, because there are a ton of guys that are like available that are going to be cheap, that like used to be really good, and like certain situations might have stopped them from being good. Like Juju Smith-Schuster is available, and they're projecting his contract to be a league min contract. Tyler Boyd is available, and they're projecting his contract to be $2 million. You know what I mean?
I would do that. I would do that for Boyd.
Absolutely.
I really like Boyd as a number 2, number 3 type guy.
Exactly. Brandon Cooks is available, and like it's been years since he's been all that great, but like at $3 million, like I ain't mad at that. You know, maybe not. Like I don't think he would come back, but like Elijah Moore is out there.
Yeah.
Joshua Palmer is out there.
I like Palmer for his size, and he also is a speedy guy for his size. So he's someone who you can line up on the outside across Garrett Wilson, who's not going to be like he's not an elite name. Josh Palmer isn't selling tickets, but he's someone with a 6'4" frame, big catch radius, speed, is able to beat you going up on those jump balls, and is also able to get past you with his speed. So I really like Josh Palmer overall. Let's move over to staying with the topic of pass catchers. To go another position in need, tight ends, and Rich Samini here lists Juwan Johnson as a potential fit here for the Jets. Juwan Johnson, certainly an interesting one. New Jersey native, coming off a career high in catches, receiving yards with 548. And across his career, though, I mean, 34 starts in 67 games. Here's the one thing that concerns me a little bit. He's coming off a career year after an okay 2023 season, and PFF is expecting him to sign a 3-year, $30 million contract. I don't get it. 3-year, $30 million. Pretty much at that point, I would rather Conklin, who Rich Samini also lists in this tweet, we'll get into in a little. I'd rather pay Tyler Conklin 1 year, $8 million, and you draft a guy, you sign a lower level guy in free. Here's what I would do. I would extend Tyler Conklin 1 year, $8 million. I really like Tyler Warren in the first round, but still, let's say you don't get Tyler Warren in the first round. There are still so many names. Colston Loveland in a trade back. Elijah Arroyo, now that the Jets have the 73rd overall pick again, which we'll talk about in a little. Harold Fannin from Bowling Green, Terrence Ferguson, all these names. You could get someone through the draft, and then maybe you sign like a Mo Ali Cox, who would fit Tanner Engstrand's scheme perfectly, who could come in for $3 million, and boom. Like, those aren't elite names, but those are 3 guys who are rosterable tight ends in this league. I'd rather do that than pay a guy like Juwan Johnson, who's been inconsistent throughout his career, $10 million a season.
See, I don't think that's a fair assessment. I don't think he's been inconsistent. He's been consistently average. I think there's the difference. Like, one, Tyler Conklin is going to get a 3-year deal.
What did that look like? 3 years, 21 though? Like 3 years?
No,
20?
he's going to get Juwan Johnson money. He's going to get 3 years, 27, 3 years, 28, 3 years, 29. He's going to be in that $9 to $10 million range. Like, that's what tight ends are going for. And like, what did Mike Gesicki just get from the Bengals?
Let me check.
Wasn't it 3 for 27?
Mike Gesicki contract 3 for let's see, 3 for 25.
3 for 25. And Mike Gesicki has no value in the run game. And he got 25
He's a pure field stretcher.
He's a
and
slot.
He's
a slot pass catcher. Like, that's what he is. He's a big slot. And at least with a guy like Juwan Johnson or Tyler Conklin, like, they provide you value in the run game. It's not a ton of value. They're not great blockers, but at least he's 6'4", 230, whereas in like Mike Gesicki isn't. And like, I think that's the thing is you know what you're getting with a guy like Juwan Johnson. He's a seam threat. He's got relatively sure hands, and he can help in the pass blocking game, but he's not going to be the focal point of your offense. Look, am I going to sit here and say that I'm super excited about Juwan Johnson? Absolutely not. And this is one of the better tight end classes that we've seen in a while. There's a lot of guys.
It's deep too.
Yeah, there's a lot of guys that you're going to be able to get. But I think you got to do both. We only have Ruckert signed on the roster. That's it.
Yeah,
That's
sign on
all
the
we
roster,
have.
but he's not. It's not even guaranteed he's going to
No,
be
no,
on
no,
the
no.
roster.
But that's the point. That's the point. Like it's all we have is Ruckert. We don't have a single other tight end. It's Ruckert. So like you got to make some moves. So I do think that if you're going to do something at tight end, getting a guy who has a relatively high floor like a Juwan Johnson, I was an advocate for keeping Tyler Conklin because like we're going to pay him $4 million to not be on the team in terms of like cap hits and things like that. And I would have said like, dude, I'll give him 327. 3 years, 27 million to stay. Like, you know what you get with Tyler Conklin.
I'd pay him that before I paid Juwan Johnson that.
I agree. It just doesn't seem like that's what we're going to do. And that's fine. Like, okay, cool. But like, I would still, regardless of what it is, I would pay one of these top end tight end guys, which really there's only like 3 names that are out there. It's
What
Juwan
about Ingram?
Johnson, Tyler
Where
Conklin.
are you on Ingram?
Oh yeah, Evan Ingram just got released. But like, isn't he kind of in that same boat of just kind of a pass catcher? Not really providing. And so like, that's not what I necessarily want.
Let me check his contract. So he signed from 2023 to it was a franchise extension, 3-year, 41 with an AV of 13 million. Like, what does his contract look like? He's someone who I think would be more expensive than Juwan Johnson or Tyler Conklin because he's more valuable in the pass game. But again, he's more of that pure pass catcher in the Mike Gesicki sense, where he's just going to stretch the field and catch passes for you. I think you do everything you can to try to keep a guy like Tyler Conklin around. Like, again, I would pay him 3 years, 27 before I did Juwan Johnson. I think though in total, you need to have 3 wide receivers this offseason. No ifs, ands, or buts.
No, yeah, of course. I just it doesn't seem like we're gonna keep Conklin around.
Yeah,
like because we would have heard those news and we would have heard that information, and we actually got the opposite. We got the news that the New York Jets aren't going to pursue Tyler Conklin.
Well, we've heard conflicting. Actually, we've heard from Connor Hughes that the Jets aren't going to pursue Moses or Conklin, and then we heard from Rosenblatt there's mutual interest with both Moses and Conklin. And then we heard from Samini today that the Jets are still interested in Morgan Moses. Among those names, I think Moses would make the most sense to come back.
Yeah, he's the most important one.
Yeah, if I had to make a prediction, I don't think Conklin comes back.
No,
I do think Moses comes back for like 1 year,
so too.
$5 or $6 million in that range.
That's a bit rich, but yeah.
1 year, $5 million for someone who's average as a starter, provides that locker room value. Like, what
yeah, but you're not going into the year with him as your starter. That's the point.
That's why I want to talk about the 72nd overall pick, because now getting that gives you the opportunity to draft someone I'm super, super high on in Ozzie Trapillo, the tackle out of Boston College. That just opens up so many more opportunities now, the way the Jets can go branch off and take new players in this draft after they had that crazy gap of picking at 42 and then not picking it until 91, the pick they had or whatever, something of that nature. We'll get to that after we wrap up this free agent list. Let's see. Next up here, DJ Jones, interior defensive lineman from the Denver Broncos, has the connection to Darren Muji. Big interior run stuffing defensive tackle. He's gonna be a bit pricey. If you ask me, when it comes to trying to bring DJ Jones into the building. What I would do with interior defensive tackle, I'd rather add someone who's up next here in like a Levi Owonzarike, who would be on the cheaper side, a lot cheaper than a DJ Jones. And then you fill that through the draft. Like, it's so deep overall. Like, you can even
that 72 pick.
Yeah, Mason, or 72 pick. Who's that? Who do you think is like a legit interior run stuffing defense? Is that Rich?
Oh, there's so many in this draft class.
You think that's Rich for Caldwell?
No, I think that's right around where he's probably going to end up going. And it's like, it's not even that. Like, I think so. We know now that we're not going to rotate as much as before. Like, that's not a Glenn philosophy, and that's not a Wilkes philosophy. So we don't need to be 5 deep on the interior defensive line like we used to be, right? And so that's really, really good. And like, dude, there's so many like just big fatties that you can kind of just go out and get.
Joshua
that are fit
Farmer is another one from FSU who I really like.
If we're talking in the draft, which is I think where you probably should end up going when it comes to like your big fatty, your interior defensive lineman, and just doing something along those lines, like in that range of like you said, Joshua Farmer's more of a pass rushing guy.
But he's still 318 pounds as well.
Totally. But he provides you that value. But like right in that pick range, Jordan Phillips, Deion Walker. If you want to go to the next pick for the New York Jets, CJ West, Jamari Caldwell, JJ Pegasus. Like there's a ton. It's just like massive Zeke Biggers. If you want to go in like the 5th round, Cameron Jackson in the 6th round. Like there's just so many of these. Like
Tonka Hemingway is someone I'm really high on from South Carolina. And like on what, because the Jets,
Tiari Tart, if you want to go in free agency. So like this is my thing where it's just like if you're looking, you gotta. We have Leonard Taylor III. I think people are sleeping on him just because he was an undrafted free agent, and I think people are forgetting that at the time of the draft last year, there were places that had a 2nd round grade on Leonard Taylor III.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
He was a
summer
first
scouting. He was a first rounder.
First rounder, exactly, until he had that off. And he was productive last season. Like when he got an opportunity, he was productive. He was productive in the run game. Another name I wanted to get your thoughts on potentially in free agency, someone who's coming off a bit of a down season. If he doesn't return to the Chiefs, how about Derek Nandi, interior defensive lineman? What are your thoughts on him?
I don't have much information on him. Like if I'm just being honest, like I don't know much about him. I think that when you're specifically looking at the defensive side of the ball, I think the best way to look at that is look at free agents that have a connection to specifically Wilkes and Glenn. Like throw away all the Denver ones because I don't believe that. I don't think Mooj is going to bring a guy that he knows if Glenn doesn't know him. So like for me, the names that you're looking at are guys that were in Detroit and guys that were in San Francisco. Those are the guys that I'm looking at because that was like where Wilkes was and that's where Glenn was. And so guys like Levi Onwuzurike makes a ton of sense. 27 years old, played a ton of snaps on the interior of the defensive line for Detroit last year. If you're just sticking to the interior of the defensive line, like again, I'm not the biggest fan of it, but there's familiarity there with like Javon Hargrave from San Francisco or like Kevin Givens from San Francisco.
Sebastian Joseph Day is an interesting one. He doesn't have the familiarity with Glenn or Wilkes, but I think he's someone who you could be that rotational interior guy who's an average run stuffer, provides you some pass rush value as well. Get him in the building for a few $1 million. He's the name that can't hurt. Next up on this list, Onwuzurike, we pretty much just spoke about him. Tigo and I are pretty high on him. He's coming. Yeah, who can come in and fit this scheme. We both agree that he's going to be a New York Jet in a matter of days. Next up here is an interesting one, Tigo. Carlton Davis. He has a connection to Aaron Glenn because he was on the Lions roster this past season. He was traded from the Buccaneers last offseason. He was in the middle of a career season, and then he had that gruesome jaw injury that he suffered in Week 15, put him out for the rest of the season. He's a guy who has experience winning, won a Super Bowl with the Bucs, and he was a big part of a Lions team that had success this past season. Again, has the connection to Aaron Glenn. I think if you move on from DJ Reed, though, it's because you can't pay him. And at that point, I might as well not. I really like Carlton Davis as a player. But you might as well at that point just not pay big money to a cornerback too. Sign Brendan Eccles, 2 years, $10 million, 2 years, $12 million. Bring him back. You drafted.
Where are you getting that money from?
Like $8 million. My bad. $8 million. So
Still, where are you getting that money from?
$4 million a year. What do you think he's worth?
I'm just saying, what does he have? If you're his agent, justify $4 million. Justify how he makes anything more than $2 million. He was a backup.
Second most interceptions on the team last year.
Okay.
He was very, very productive when he got an opportunity. He was great in coverage.
Yeah, so you get a 1 year prove it $2-3 million deal. To get more than we're getting down into the weeds. I think he has the
opportunity to get a multi-year deal with the team.
I don't think so. I don't think he has a multi-year deal with anybody. You would get a prove it deal. Like Stephon Diggs is going to get a 1 year deal because of his injury. And we know how good Stephon Diggs is. Why is a backup who's shown promise, but like he's not going to get. Tony Adams has more justification for a multi-year deal, and he's not being looked at as a guy who's going to get a multi-year deal. He's going to get a 1 year deal. It's going to be like, it's besides the point. I think you hit the nail on the head when it came to to this with the Carlton Davis. You can't pay Sauce. You can't pay Sauce. You can't pay Michael Carter, and you can't pay Carlton Davis.
Yeah.
Because like we just re-signed Michael Carter. He's making $30 million over the next 3 years, and you're gonna pay Sauce in this offseason or next offseason. Like you can then on top of that, like it's just too much money.
You're moving on from DJ Reed because you can't pay him, and then you're
I
pretty
think
much
you're moving on from DJ Reed because he's not a scheme fit. I think there's a difference there.
But also, he's going to command a lot of money in free agency. Like, he's going to be a super, super high paid cornerback. And that, again, at that point, I might as well just fill it with, like, you bring back Brandon Echols on some sort of deal. I know we're going back and forth there on what that looks like, but you bring him back, you draft a cornerback. Siobhan Revel from ECU is someone I really, really like in the second round. Trey Amos is another one I'm high on from Ole Miss. So I think it's a combination. You bring back a Brandon Echols, whether it's 1 year, 2 year deal, something of that nature for a couple $1 million, and then you look to the draft. There's some other cornerbacks you could potentially try to bring in who are on the cheaper side in free agency. A name that intrigues me, someone who would be expensive, but is also another high-end guy. If the Jets want to go that route, is Byron Murphy from the Vikings. If he doesn't come back, another high-end name. If the Jets do decide to go that route, potentially more
I just
of a
don't think you need to go that big of a swing
Yeah.
at corner. You
What
have
about like
Sauce.
a Stephon Gilmore, like
Nah.
who could $6 million, something of that nature,
Nah.
1 year.
I think you got to go. I think the reality is you kind of go cheaper until you can find a guy in the draft. Like you're looking at 1-2 year deals out there, kind of guys. I think Echols falls into that kind of mold. Maybe a guy like Nate Hobbs is a free agent, is going to get like $3 or $4 million, because like we're not going to do that thing where like Sauce is going to be on the left side and whoever's quarterback number 2 is going to no. Sauce is going to follow wide receiver ones now, and like we're just going to play football like it's kind of meant to be played. And so your quarterback 2 doesn't need to be as good as the wide receiver ones on the other team, which is what you would need to do in a Robert Saleh scheme. Like that's why we had DJ Reed and Sauce Gardner, because they were going to play their sides of the field. No. If you're following wide receiver ones, your cornerback, this sounds simple, but it is this simple, just needs to be as good as a wide receiver 2. And most teams don't have elite wide receiver 2s. There's very, very few of them. And like, if you come into a team that has an elite wide receiver 2, cool. Bracket him. So we got safeties for. You can just bracket the wide receiver 2 because Sauce can handle Jamar Chase one-on-one. You know what I mean? Like if you go up against the Bengals, T. Higgins is him. He's a wide receiver 1 on what? 25 NFL teams? Yeah. Happens to be wide receiver 2 on the Cincinnati Bengals. Cool. Put a safety over him. Put Isaiah Rodgers, just throw another cheap corner out there, and then just insert whoever safety you get. That's your free safety over the top. Just bracket, and then you're not good, but like you've done something there.
Next up on this list, Tigo, Talona Hufanga. I hope I'm saying that correctly. Safety. What'd you say? Sorry.
No, yeah, it makes a lot of sense. Sorry.
Yeah. No, all good. Has the connection, again, you mentioned, big on defense, having those connections. Has the connection to Steve Wilkes, played under him as his DC in 2023. Like, he's someone who suffered injuries the past few seasons, just 16 months pretty much removed from a torn ACL. But you look at him before the injury, he's still 25 years old. Let's keep that in mind. He's not someone coming off an ACL injury.
26.
Yeah, 26, my bad. Who's coming off an ACL injury, who's now 32 years old and nearing the latter end of his career. He's 26 years old, over 200 tackles, 2 sacks, 7 interceptions, drafted in the 6th round. I like the possibility of bringing him in because you need to add a few safeties in free agency. You could do the argument, do you add 2, do you add 3? I think you need to add at least 2 free agencies, 2 safeties in free agency, excuse me. That could be a combo of drafting signing a Hufanga, and then, drafting a Xavier Watts from Notre Dame in the 2nd round. I think you need at least 2 new safeties in the building. Hufanga, someone who has a connection to this coaching staff, someone who was an everyday starter before an ACL injury, still on the younger side, looking in that $10 million AAV, wouldn't hate it.
Yeah, no, I think you, I would swing bigger at safety. Like if you're gonna go safety,
is like
free
a
agent,
Justin Reed a big swing for you?
Yeah, like I would swing bigger. Like, and this isn't me trying to like dig on Hufanga at all, but like there are injury concerns there, and he's still gonna get what 12-ish
10 to
million
12,
dollars.
I'd say, is
Yeah.
my guess. Yeah.
And so like if you're going to take that kind of swing on a safety, and I think we should, like I would swing for like Justin Reed. I would
Who's
swing,
still on the younger side, who's
yeah,
elite. Yeah.
28. I would swing for Cameron Bynum. I would swing for Javon Holland. Like I would swing for Trevon Moehrig. Like guys who we know have like high upside
what
who
about
just like,
Jeremy Chin? He's another one on this list. Coming off a really, really solid season.
yeah,
Has the
but
connection
he's
to
like a cheap
Wilkes.
alternative. I think that's like he's not
Yeah.
in that first wave of safeties, right? Like I don't think Chin should be your first call. He should be on the list. Like absolutely should be on the list. In the same way, like I think like Elijah Molden should be on the list. But he's like after you try to go and get guys like Justin Reed and Trevon Moehrig and Javon Holland and Cameron Bynum and like even Hufanga, like I think you take a big swing or you try to take a big swing. And if it fails, then you pivot into that next tier of guys where you're just like, okay, we weren't able to take a big swing, but like now you can bring in both Jeremy Chin and Elijah Molden for less money than you would get just Javon Holland, for an example. So it's a weird situation with safety, but like there's a lot of ways that it can go about it. My thing is like Hufanga seems like this weird like half swing.
Yeah.
Like if you're a Trevor
There's, like,
Bauer
the
fan, it's like a
unknown.
sword kind
Yeah.
of it's a situation where it's just like it's not a full swing because like a full swing would be like go get Javon Holland, go give him 20 per, and go get Javon Holland and be like
Who's coming right off his rookie contract too.
Yeah.
You pretty much
Right.
poach from your division
and
rival.
you're getting him from a division rival. Like go do that,
Yeah.
right? But it's also like. And that's like real aggressive money. That's a swing. That's swinging for the fences. Or you've got like the more reasonable options, which are just like, you know, like you said, like Jeremy Chin, Elijah Molden, Andre Cisco, like things like that. And it's just like, where that's just like, dude, I'm just trying to get on base. It's just like, Hufanga just feels like that weird, like you thought you were going to swing for the fences and then you pulled your bat back a little bit. And now you just like, now it's just an infield fly. And it's just like, it feels like we could have done either more to get like a superstar or less and gotten more safeties. I don't know. I'm not anti-Hufanga, but it's just like,
Yeah, I get that 1,000%. That was the list from ESPN's Rich Samini. Now, Tigo, before we get to questions in the chat, get rolling with the rest of our topics tonight. Rapid fire for me through these final names who are in-house in Jamien Sherwood, DJ Reed, who we touched on, Tyler Conklin, who we touched on, and Morgan Moses. So pretty much only Sherwood here. Give me a riff on Sherwood.
Sherwood, okay, so to be very clear here, I was in a weird situation where at the beginning of the offseason, I was like, we should bring in Sherwood. Like, he should be priority number one in this, like, free agent class in terms of, like, players that are going to be leaving the New York Jets. You don't leave a guy who's as good as Sherwood is in coverage and has shown to be a really, really good, like, high-flying, aggressive tackler, especially in a system that you're going to see Glenn and Wilkes want to run, which is like real aggressive downhill running, tackling, those kinds of things. But when you look at the stats and when you look at the archetypes of these middle linebackers that Glenn likes to run and that Wilkes likes to run, they like bigger guys. You know, they like linebackers, like a linebacker's linebacker, and that's just not what Sherwood is. Sherwood, let's not forget, is a safety converted to linebacker, and there is a world in which we re-sign him and he converts back to safety, right? Not as your free safety, right? But like as your box safety. And
would he be interested in doing that though? Like, would he rather just
no
take?
idea.
Here's the
thing.
I
haven't even thought about that. So like before we start, that literally just came into my head that's like rattling around with way too much cough syrup. I don't even know if that's a realistic option or a real but like I would keep him. I think he's good. I don't think you pass on the guy who was top 5 in tackles, regardless of his size. I don't think you pass on a guy that is as good as he is in coverage for a middle linebacker who came in for an all-pro CJ Mosley. And that specific part of the field almost didn't miss a beat. You know what I mean? And that's a big deal. He wasn't as good as CJ when CJ was when he was like winning his all pros and doing all that stuff, because I don't think that's a fair comparison. But like, you've got that guy in house. And a part of me is just like, I know it's not your pick, but there's something about a guy that was in the building, got drafted by this team, worked his, like, sat on the bench, did all the dirty work, and like, regardless that it was a different
Climbed
regime,
up the ranks. Climbed the ranks.
He waited for his opportunity. He didn't make a stink. He did everything right. And when he got given his opportunity, he maximized it. And he was one of the best linebackers. Like, there's something to be said about rewarding that, because like, just because this is a new coaching staff doesn't mean the players didn't see the hard work that he put in. So like, there's something about that. So I would keep Sherwood, because like, converted safety to linebacker, put all the work in, waited and bided his time behind 2 all-pro linebackers. It looked like he was never going to see the field. Gets his opportunity and shines. I would keep him.
Appreciate you all tuning in. Make sure you smash the like button and you are subscribed to the channel. It's completely free. Helps us grow significantly. Connor and Tico here with you on a late night Saturday edition of NY Flight Jets Talk. Keep the questions coming. We'll see them. We'll get to those shortly. If you want to call into the show, you could do so with the pinned comment at the top of the chat. Tico, a few more talking points here before we get into some questions in the chat. Other news. Rich Samini tweeted out that the team Jets ultimately announced they extended wide receiver / special teamer Irv Charles to an extended exclusive right tender, along with offensive lineman Xavier Newman. Tigo, in my eyes, this is a move I really, really like. I'm big on Irv Charles. I think he's someone who provides a lot of special teams value. Showed that last season before he got hurt. As for Xavier Newman, he's just someone suffered a gruesome injury in that Steelers game. Provide some O-line depth. Get him back on a cheaper deal. He could be somewhat of a depth option. I'm not going to rely on him too much. Overall, my biggest takeaway here, though, was Irv Charles coming back for at a cheap rate, and I think that's a great move, because when he was on the field last year, he was a top special teamer.
No, yeah, that's exactly it. I thought, if you guys have been following my mock off seasons, Irv Charles has been on every single one of them for that exact reason. And I'm not going through, generally speaking, all of like the little signings, because like, I also would have kept Newman. I think he's good enough to be your third center kind of a thing, or like, not the next guy up on the interior O-line, but the next guy after the next guy. I always thought like he was good enough to be that, can play all 3 positions on the interior of the offensive line. And it's just like, yeah, like, there's value to having a guy who's flexible and can do that for you. But I think that keeping Irv Charles matters, and like, that's why I made sure I highlighted him every mock off season, was for that exact reason, was because like, special teams matters, like kicking matters, punting matters. Like, you have to have players that are good in those positions, and having good gunners. We saw it last year, how our special teams fell apart after he got off of it. You know what I mean? And that is, I think, something that's really, really interesting. Another name that's in that little, like, in that same kind of spot that I would also keep an eye on. Maybe he does come back, maybe he doesn't come back, and I don't think it's going to be like a super priority. I think it kind of plays out the same way it did last year, where it's like a late deal. But Ashton Davis is another one of those guys where you're not bringing him in to be a safety. Don't think of him like that. You would bring him back to be, he's the quarterback of your special teams. You know what I mean? Because that's what he did for us before. And
what is that value, though, to just come in and be a pure special teamer at this point?
Like 2.5. Like, and none of it's guaranteed. Like, that's what he got last year. I think last year he got $2.5 million. And it's just like he's good enough if you need him in a pinch to play safety, like that he can. You don't want him to be your starting safety. No. But like, he can. And he provides a ton of value on, special teams. I'm not saying to do it. I'm just saying, like, dude, there's a world in which you kind of have that conversation. There's a world in which if we go back and we only run 4 linebackers and we want to run 5 safeties, you can do that. Like, you can legitimately justify saying, okay, we keep Ashton Davis for like $2 million just because of the value that he brings and because he just tackles hard. Like he's just aggressive, and that's like, do we not remember he threw the player into the other player to get the forced fumble? You know what I mean? Or was it it was a safety? You know what I mean?
That's
Like,
what. Yeah, he's a hard. He played hard. He played hard last season, but I think there were higher expectations for him than ultimately what he lived up to.
Because that was supposed to be his breakout year. That was supposed to be the year where he
had a solid
showed
2020. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. He was supposed to show us that he was a starting caliber safety, and we never saw that.
He didn't exactly. That's the one thing with Ashton Davis. But I could certainly see him coming back on more of a team friendly deal, like you said.
He might go to San Francisco though, because like that's where
Saleh. Yeah,
not Saleh. Where
what's his name? Boyer. Brent
Boyer went. You know, and if you're gonna get a special teams, like he knows the special teams that you want to run, so like it makes sense.
Yeah, for sure. All right, our last point here before we get to your questions in the chat. Super chats will come up immediately. Shout out to our guy, Boy Green, who hits us up with the updated Jets draft order after we officially heard the Jets now have the 73rd overall pick after a lot of ambiguity surrounding that whole situation. So the Jets have the 7th overall pick, 42nd overall pick, top of the second round. 73rd overall pick, top of the third round, near the top of the third round, 109 in the 4th round, 2 5th rounders, 146, 157, and 2 6th rounders, 188 and 109. I think this is a huge news for the Jets, Tico, because the thing is, the funny part is the Jets knew about this. The Jets knew all along they had this pick. So this doesn't change their preparation for the draft by any means as we sit here in early March. But us fans, we were under the assumption once you trade for Devontae Adams, boom, you lose that pick. And then the Jets have that huge gap from 42 to 91, I think it was. Now this is, I think, a perfect bridge from 42 to 109, because this puts you in a tier where doing these mock drafts, picking at 42, you watch so many great players go off the board as you now next pick in the early 90s. Now you have the 73rd overall pick. That opens up the door for a middle round guy like an Ozzie Trapillo, who I'm really, really high on from Boston College, Xavier Restrepo, if he's there, and Elijah Arroyo. All these different names that we just assume Jets didn't have a chance at. They're solid players, but you don't have a chance because you pick at 42 and you picked at 90-something. But now the Jets have that top of the third round pick where it opens the door for a lot of new names.
Yeah, and like you said, like it opened, you're no longer. No, I think you said it perfectly. It opens you up to a whole slew of prospects. Again, the Jets they knew, but like it opens you up to a whole slew of prospects that you didn't anticipate were going to be available to you, like Ozzie Trapillo, like if we're sticking in the tackle range, like Marcus Mumbo, out of Purdue, or or in the safety range, Kevin Winston Jr., which is like
Penn State,
never kind of made it to you. Jordan Phillips is now in that range. If you're going,
where are you on Sebastian Castro?
I'm out on Sebastian Castro
because he's someone who seems to be going in that range in a lot of mocks.
Yeah, I'm out. You're not interested. Castro. I used to be a guy who was like Sebastian Castro. If he made it to that 91 pick, was like really good value. And I thought that there was upside there, and then the combine happened and he just looked really, really unathletic and like really, really stiff. I will reevaluate after the Iowa Pro Day, right? Because like that, I think like that's where he can make up and be like, no, it was just the pressure of the combine. Now that I'm at school, I'm more loose. But like Sebastian Castro really like scared me with just how unathletic he looked.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's a weird spot where it's just like, do you trust the tape? And it's like, do you trust the 2023 tape? Because that's the good year, right? Or do you trust your eyes and what you saw when he was running the drills, where it was just like, dude just didn't look athletic at all. So it's just a weird spot. I think safety in this class isn't all that great. I think you got to go safety early. I think you got to get aggressive and go early. You got to look at 7, or you got to look at 42 if you want to go
7.
I don't love it, and I'm not advocating for it. I'm just saying, like, you got to go 7 or 42 if you're looking at safety in the draft, in my opinion, because I don't think these guys are making it to 73. Like, even Sebastian Castro, I don't think he's making it to 73. And after Sebastian Castro falls off a cliff, these safeties, you know what I mean? Because you'd be theoretically looking at like a starting safety. So
Like for example, I think a Xavier Watts from Notre Dame is someone I think can come in and start. Like I think you have the tier of the Malachi Starks, Xavier Watts, and Nick Amanwari. Those
Yeah.
three guys I think are the clear-cut top three guys from the draft. And then you have Castro, you have Winston. Ransom from Ohio State is Salin Magupa is someone I like from Virginia. I like Sanker, I like Bowman. But then after that, Upton Stout, like Elijah Clark, RJ Mickens. Like after that, I think you have the first 3 rounds to get a legit starter, and then you have rounds 4 through 6 to get a rosterable guy. That's the way I view it.
No, absolutely. And it's just like I think you kind of need a legit starter, and it's just like and like the big fear, obviously, like again, we're in no man's land, which is just like Malachi Starks, Xavier Watts, and Emanwari don't make it to 42. None of them make it to 42. And 7, while makes sense for Malachi Starks, like totally makes sense talent-wise and like just what he provides. You're really taking a safety at 7?
Yeah.
That's the pick, safety?
I would take so many. Like I like Starks a lot. The thing is, I can't take a safety in the 7th overall pick. I would take.
Exactly. No, I'm with you. Like I'm just like safety at 7. At 7,
Yeah.
really?
Exactly. Yeah, for sure. So
Okay.
yeah,
Like,
bottom
I wouldn't
line,
hate the pick, but
yeah.
it's just like
Did that really
Tyler
move
Warren?
the needle? Like I've been big on you need a starter at pick 7, and Malachi Starks
Totally.
would be a starter,
a high level one.
a high level starter, 1000%. But like I think you need a starter at a high. Here, if this makes sense, I think the overall value of Tyler Warren at pick 7 makes a lot more sense than the overall value.
I would have the same reaction. Tight end
from a
at 7?
Yeah.
That's
from
it?
like
That's the pick.
Like Starks is a great player. The thing is, positional value is what I'm looking at here right now. There are guys that have
would be more, wouldn't it? With how we play, how we're going to play on defense.
You're going to
aggressive
play
we're
that
gonna
way on
play?
defense. I'm more focused though. I think you need a pass catcher at 7.
I agree.
A pass catcher or a defensive lineman.
See,
One of
but
the
here's
two.
the thing, which I think is very funny. Like that's no matter what we pick at 7, the reaction is going to be like, well, like I guess okay, right? Because it's just like let's talk about the guys that are going to be available at 7 that we might take, like outside of Ted McMillan, and I don't think he's going to be there, right?
Tyler Warren.
I think Emeka Buka's that's way too rich. Malachi Starks, we already had that conversation. Really, safety at 7?
Yeah.
Tyler Warren, you're like really?
I like Warren. I like Warren.
But again, like tight end at 7, like you could have taken just like Brock Bowers last year, but like tight end at 7.
Yeah, but you chose to try to solidify the left side of your offense.
No, totally. But like you then have the same conversation where it's like let's say James Pierce Jr. or just like okay, but like we have 2 first-round edges, so like another edge. Armand Membu. It's like I like.
Here's the thing. I don't think any name at 7.
Like,
yeah, I don't think any name at 7 is not going to. It's not going to be. Here's the thing. I get more excited. I get more giddy talking about these second-round guys than I do first-round guys.
Same.
It's so funny. Like even a guy who was a second-rounder a few months ago, but now is going to be a first-rounder, like Jahad Campbell. I just have so much.
He's probably going to be in the conversation at 7, and you're just like,
and then you're.
I love Jahad Campbell, but linebacker
at 7, exactly. Like,
really? And every single pick is going to run into that conversation.
Exactly.
Every pick is going to be like, okay, like the Bowers boys are going to come out of the weeds if we take Tyler Warren at 7, and you're just like, and because it was the Jets, and the Jets were tied to Brock Bowers all off season, so now, and it's not fair to Warren. You're going to have that comparison. His whole career is can he be as good as Brock Bowers? And that's not fair to him. And then it's just like you get Jahad Campbell, and it's just like, dude, when was the last time a linebacker got taken in the top 10? Wasn't it the Steelers who took? Was it Bush? I don't remember. It was somebody who took a linebacker at 10, and it's just like Armand Membu. And it's like okay, but like how many day 1 and day 2 picks are you going to use on the offensive line? James Pierce is just like we need 3 first-round edges, really?
Yeah,
really. Mason Graham is just like, dude, okay, we have 2 first-round interior defensive linemen, or I think the more realistic Kenneth Grant, which would be like the guy
would be a great scheme fit overall.
Yeah,
you could like plug in next to Quinn and really fit that the new defensive scheme. I would be on board with Kenneth Grant, but again, like you said, there's gonna be
7.
Yeah, it's 7 for every single prospect.
Everyone.
Yeah, exactly.
Hilarious.
For sure. Appreciate you all tuning in here on this Saturday evening. Smash the like, subscribe to the channel. Submit your questions for Tigo and I. We'll get to those if you want to call into the show. You could do so with the pinned comment at the top of the chat. Our number one Austrian Jet fan wants more raffle tickets. Comes in with a $5 super chat. Our number one Austrian Jet fan checking in here on the show. Can't thank you enough for all your support on the program. And then Jimmy Jets follows that up with another $5 super sticker. Jimmy, thank you so much. The $5 super sticker. Appreciate your support on the show. Our Lions fan, David D, comes in with 10 gifted memberships. Hit it, AG.
Here's what I do know. We're the freaking New York Jets, so we're built for this shit.
Damn straight, AG. Our Lions fan, David D, comes in 10 gifted memberships. David, thank you so much. That is 10 raffle tickets for you in our membership raffle. David, thank you so much for your support here on the program. Leany, congrats on the victory earlier today. And as Maniac Madness comes in with a gifted membership.
I'm going to lose my gosh darn bananas.
Thank you so much, Leany, for the gifted membership. Appreciate your support on the program. As always, Leany, David D, Jimmy Jets, Austrian Jet fan, all getting into our membership raffle. You can do so by every $2.99 super chat, every gifted membership. We'll get you a ticket into our raffle. Start things off with Zachary Burner. I think Glenn wants speed. I think you get that with Josh Palmer, Tigo, like we were speaking about earlier. Like you get the size. He's versatile in the sense you get the size, the 6'4" frame, the big catch radius, but he can also gash you with his speed. I think that's the thing I like about Josh Palmer. He's also not going to cost you the house.
I think more important, I think Zach was referencing more about Jamien Sherwood and the speed that Jamien Sherwood provides.
We're talking about wide receivers when this came in.
Oh, okay. Even either way, I think you're absolutely right. And today's modern game is all about speed, you know? Miami was able to, up until at least this year, was like they were able to win on speed alone, like just speed. They didn't have anyone on the offensive line that could protect but it was just get pass catchers the ball early and let their speed kill you. And that's what they did. And like, we all know Tua is not all that great of a quarterback in terms of like all of the special things that quarterback does, but he throws the ball on schedule. That's what he does. You know, the ball is going to be out on time and accurately. And you can operate an offense that way at a high level. And if you just inject a ton of track stars, that's what you get. And that's exactly what Miami did. Went out and just got some of the fast Taj Washington, Leon Washington, Jalen Waddle, Tyreek Hill. Dude, they're a team of track stars. And
exactly.
And it works. And so I'm not saying to be
when
like
Tua's on the field. When Tua's on the field.
Of course. No, but again, Tua's elite trait is that he can get the ball out accurately and on time. That's it. Like that's what he does at an exceptionally high level. And they can operate a really, really good offense that way. Because I think a lot of people have a hard time disrupting the timing of Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle because they're very good wide receivers. So yeah, no, I'm totally with you. If you can add and inject speed onto your football team, regardless of what position it is, you're going to see a lot of upside. That's why Anthony Golden is probably going to be a first-round wide receiver this year.
Matthew Golden, from
Sorry,
Texas.
Matthew.
Yeah, because he ran that crazy 40. That's
4.29.
Yeah, he ran that.
That's game speed too.
Yeah, for sure. All right, Tigo, I appreciate you hopping on. I know you got to run. I hope you feel better. I'm gonna stay on here a little longer, guys. Answer your questions, take your calls. But Tigo's a little under the weather, so he has to hit the road. Tigo, hope you feel better, and I appreciate you hopping on with me as always.
Have a good night, guys.
Ladies and gentlemen, Talking Jets with Tigo, checking in here with on the program. If you don't follow, shoot him a sub. Talking Jets with Tigo on YouTube, on Twitter. Tigo's the best. Appreciate him hopping on as always. I can't thank you guys enough for all your support on the show. Like I said, keep the questions coming, and we'll get to those. Pin comment at the top of the chat if you want to call into the show. Alan says, I just don't see this regime going top tier free agent shopping in 2025. I agree. I think there's the potential to be maybe one bigger signing in a Justin Reed, a Javon Holland, but I don't think it's going to be like we've seen the past few years where it's just these several blockbuster moves coming in. So I don't think, like I said, I don't think they're going to be the most active like we've seen in past few seasons, but don't count them out from adding a Justin Reed or a Javon Holland. Swamp Ranger was talking to Alan in the chat, but I pinned it because I thought he made a great point here. With our third round at 73, we could snag a right tackle with that pick. Cameron Williams from Texas is an interesting one. We spoke about Ozzie Trapillo. Draft a guy and have most help develop him. I agree with that last part. Cameron Williams is a really, really interesting option if the Jets want to go that route. Super long arms, flashes the ability to turn pass pro reps into run blocks, quick, fiery feet, very effective on front side kickouts. Thing is, he gains really minimal ground out of his stance that forces his hips to open up early. 6'5", 335 pounds. Wouldn't hate it, but at the same time, like a Donovan Jackson, who I'm super, super high on from Ohio State, would probably be there in the range. Wyatt Millum is another one from West Virginia who I like. Heavy hands, solid athletic ability. Really, really solid on play action. 6'6", 315 pounds. Great week at the Senior Bowl with Dom C, Jeremy, and all the guys were there. So at that point, I would take like a Donovan Jackson over Cameron Williams. I would take Ozzie certainly over Cameron Williams. I would take who's the other one? I just said Donovan Jackson over all these different guys I would take before I took Cameron Williams. Let's see, where are we in the chat? David Tim Patrick is going to get more than the league minimum if he leaves Detroit. The Lions very likely want him back. I agree 1,000%. I think you're looking at 1 year $4, 1 year $5 million. I'm not with Tigo there. I think you need more than. I think he's getting more than the league minimum overall. Jack, appreciate you tuning in. I don't know what to feel about Lockett. I feel like he would be manageable, but way out of his prime and a little old. I don't see the Jets going that route because he's a veteran who would cost a little more than like a Tim Patrick. I don't see them being interested in trying to bring in Tyler Lockett. But certainly, like, he's still a wide receiver 2 in this league. He's just out of the phase in his career where he's putting up over 1,000 yards every single season, the true number 1. He's just not that guy anymore. Swamp Ranger, Abuka will be drafted before Tent McMillan. He might, just because Tent won't run and teams are going to put a lot of stock into it, but he shouldn't. Like, look, I like Emeka Abuka. Really natural route runner, very fluid with his change of directions, very, very comfortable getting his way into space, finding space, weaving through traffic, very, very strong ball tracking ability. Thing is, I just think Tet is a more NFL-ready receiver and a more NFL-built wide receiver than Emeka Abuka is, in my eyes. Dave Briga, Brown or Slayton, doubt if you can sign both. Doubt, probably I think he's saying doubt. I doubt they could sign both. I think you can get both because both are not going to cost top dollar. Let's keep that in mind. With Brown, you're looking 2 years, $8 million. With Slayton, probably in that similar range, you could get both. Brown intrigues me. I'm just not paying the house for him though because he's very young. He's shown flashes of upside, but he hasn't shown any consistency whatsoever. Sharon, Tyleik Williams. I'm super, super high overall, Sharon, on Tyleik Williams. I know you watch the show, so you've probably heard me talk about Tyleik a lot. Really like him in that second round pick range. I know Trevor Sikkema has him. I think Trevor Sikkema either has a late first round or early second round grade on him. But 6'3", 327 pounds, just turned 22. Very compact and powerful. And he does his best at the line of scrimmage and just holding his own in the trenches. So he's a mauler. I'm a huge, huge fan of Tyleik Williams, especially in the second round. Let's see, where were we? Dread for life 30, Sanders at 7. I hope not. I just don't think again, Sanders is 1. I don't think is the guy. Look, Shedeur Sanders, I think, is a solid quarterback prospect. He's not someone, there's distractions that come with him as well. I don't feel comfortable handing the keys of my franchise to Shedeur Sanders. That's just me. So for me, no to Sanders at 7. That's where I am. But I understand why a lot of people would be intrigued by the possibility of bringing in Shedeur Sanders. Appreciate you all tuning in. Smash the like, subscribe to the channel. Can't thank you enough for all of your support here on the program. Any questions, throw them in the chat. We'll stay on here a little longer, get to those. If you want to, you can call into the show with the pinned comment at the top of the chat as well. Super Chats cut the line immediately. Gifted memberships. Super Chats are the way to get into our membership raffle. Let's go over to the phone lines. Jack is up here on the show. Jack, you're on NY Flight Jets Talk.
What's up, Connor? I've got a couple, I like the idea of getting Justin Fields. I know you're on board with it. I know Tico's not really on board with it. But if you think about it, right, I like the idea. I don't know if it was mentioned on the show or not yet because I just joined about 30 minutes ago. I would say 30, 40 minutes ago. But I like the idea of signing Fields, right? Because especially if we're only going to use him for a bridge quarterback this season, you have Tyrod and Fields compete this year. Maybe even if you have 7 open, maybe you take Warren or trade down. That way you have enough to maybe trade back up for next season to get your franchise guy. I just
Yeah,
want to
for
get your
sure.
thoughts on
I
that.
think that's the best upside plan. Like, I think you have the best chance of winning with that group. You get the upside in Fields, and then you get the steady Eddie consistency when Tyrod Taylor. I think that's a great combo. If they were to compete, I think Tyrod would beat him out in my eyes.
Mhm. Now, if Justin were to get the starting job and somehow he pulled a Sam Darnold with the Vikings this year, would you still want a franchise quarterback in the draft, or would you find sticking with Fields, seeing whatever he
I
does?
have to see how these guys look their final year of college. I just
Right.
haven't
Yeah.
seen enough out of all these guys. I also haven't watched enough of them. Like, it depends what a Sam year looks like. If what
Mhm.
you categorize as a Sam Darnold year going 10-7, and he starts 11 games,
Yeah. I mean,
like
I
I
don't
think
know.
you need to win at least a playoff game with Justin
Right.
Fields in order to
Right.
convince me to bring him back long term.
Right, yeah, I totally agree, right? Because like if I feel like for Fields, maybe even just go 10-7 and make the wild card. Although I don't think that's going to secure him a franchise spot, at least it's something to build off of. At least you're comfortable in this new regime you have. Why break it when it's been working, right? That's just my opinion on it. And you build forward and move forward from that, and I feel like it'll set you up for better success the following seasons, even if you don't win a playoff game but you make the playoffs or you're close to. I feel like it's better to, if it's not broke, don't fix it, right? That's really where I'm going here. If Fields does well, I feel like maybe we pick up our quarterback, have him sit on the bench behind Fields for a year, maybe start him. Who knows? But I feel like if it's not broken, don't fix it, especially if Fields does very well with the Jets. If of course, that's hypothetically speaking. If he goes, that's even if he goes to the Jets, and even hell, if he even starts.
Ladies and gentlemen, Jack Talks Jets checking in here on the show. Great call as always, Jack. Appreciate your support. Appreciate you tuning in. Jack, Chris G, and I, weekly show, ladies and gentlemen, starting tomorrow night, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, every single Sunday night. Stay tuned for that. I'm gonna throw the link in the chat. The link. I'm gonna post the link. Excuse me. On the YouTube feed. Probably early tomorrow morning. But every Sundays at 7 p.m. Mark that on your calendars, ladies and gentlemen. Chris, Jack, and I on here talking Jets panel roundtable style show. So really looking forward to that. Jack always great. Chris always great. Give Jack a follow. Give Jack a sub at Jack Talks Jets on YouTube. Ladies and gentlemen, can't thank you guys enough for sticking with me here on this Saturday, late night edition of NY Flight Jets Talk. Smash the like, subscribe, last chance to get your thoughts in here. Before we wrap, over an hour long show, 11:10 on the East Coast right now. You guys are the best. Can't thank you enough for all your support. Tomorrow, the show with Jack and Chris weekly. Saturday, Nick Fario weekly spot. And free agency is going to ramp up too, so we're going to have new stuff to talk about. So, Monday, Nick Faria in his weekly spot. Tuesday, Gunny Gumby in his weekly spot. Wednesday, Matt O'Leary in his weekly spot. Thursday, working something out, but we normally get a guest in for Thursday. Thursday and Friday are going to be the days we're going to have to work out. Saturday, Cole Thompson, draft analyst in his weekly spot. And then Sunday, Next Gen Jets. So that's the plan for the upcoming week. That's my vision. Again, any guests you want to see on the show, throw them in the chat. I always try to make them happen. Every piece of suggestion you guys give me, I take it into consideration. I do my best to try to put that into the channel, put that back into the show. Show's about you guys smashing like, you guys subscribing. You guys are the way the show is still going. So can't thank you guys enough for all your support. That said, I'm going to wrap things up here on this Saturday evening edition of NY Flight Jets Talk on March 8th, 2025. Appreciate you all tuning in. I am your host, Connor Long, signing off. JTS, Jets, Jets, Jets.